I'm Megan Kendrick, Director of Development, and I welcome you to the Learning Alliance webinar, Saving a Generation of Children. We hope you find this webinar informative and inspiring. And now I'll turn it over to Barbara Hammond, co-founder and CEO of the Learning Alliance.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us so early in this virtual format. Really, we are on our 11th year of this amazing journey, and we wouldn't be here without you all. You all have provided the fuel to help us learn what it takes to create a community where we can create the conditions for all children being able to read by 3rd grade. I think we have a really exciting panel today. I will introduce them in a moment. Today's topic really is about resilience and recovery. It reminds me of a story that we shared in our MCAN room last year, which was a Special Olympic skier preparing to go down and try to win the gold medal in the Special Olympics in a slalom. And she knew if she didn't fall that she would probably win. And at the very last obstacle, she fell, and she got up again and went through the finish line. But she said to her coach, if only I hadn't fallen. I know I got 2nd place, but if only I hadn't fallen, I would have gotten 1st. And her coach said the person who got 1st place did fall, but she got up faster. So really this work is about us being resilient and developing the skills to adapt and innovate in the moment and get up quickly as COVID and other challenges knock us down. So I thought that would be relevant. I wanted to share that I'm going to clarify a little bit about who TLA is and what Moonshot is, because sometimes we get people confusing what the two are. I'm going to share some exciting news about recent awards that we've won at the national level. And then I'll introduce the speakers and give a quick video from our partners about the Learning Alliance. If you look at the logo on the screen, the logo of the Learning Alliance, which is on the left-hand side, is really the star is the child in the middle, and we unite a community around that child to try to figure out what it takes to get 90% of our kids reading on grade level by 3rd grade. The Learning Alliance was started by parents passionate who saw their own kids failing in the educational system as early as kindergarten. And what could we do to bring best practices here and build a community that could support all children? To do that, we couldn't do it alone. The school district couldn't do it alone. We realized we needed everybody in the community. So we launched a Moonshot Community Action Network and a goal called the Moonshot Moment. So that Moonshot Moment is a campaign, it's a goal that our community members, over 200 community members, over 60 organizations embrace and work towards, meeting monthly to try to figure out how do we build a really strong ecosystem prenatally to 3rd grade to help build the conditions in our families, in our community, in our schools to help make this goal happen. The Learning Alliance is the backbone support. We're the managing partner of that work. We unite the community, reimagine education. So again, the Learning Alliance is the organization and the Moonshot Moment is really the goal and our effort to get everybody on board to move towards that goal. If we look at the next slide, some exciting news. We have Ralph Smith here, who is the head of the campaign for grade level reading at the national level. They have recruited over 400 communities in the United States of America, and you see that on the map on the left of your screen. And these communities are all working towards 3rd grade reading proficiency. If you look on the right-hand screen, you can see that there's about 18 communities in Florida who are on that journey. We were one of the initial communities on the journey. We have gotten national recognition from the campaign for grade level reading for 7 years, being a pace setter and a leading and a bright spot on this map. This last year, what I'm pleased to share with you is we received 8 different recognitions from the campaign for grade level reading about our work, improving kindergarten readiness, 3rd grade reading, creating a big tent for all players across the playing field, schools and community partners to come together to solve this problem. And those were more awards than any other community in the great campaign. And Ralph Smith and his number 2, Ron Fairchild, said the star in Vero Beach, Florida glows a little more brightly. And Ralph will come and talk to what he sees over the last 10 years has been happening here and what's the secret sauce behind our work in this community. This other recognition that we got this last year is the Oak Foundation looked at what was going on in K to third grade, what type of instruction needed to happen and who was doing it. And on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that Vero Beach, again, was one of 4 bright spots that's actually moving the needle and creating what they would say a literacy for all formula. That means that we are striving to have every classroom teacher trained in the science of literacy and the skills to do it well with every child based on their needs, that we have targeted extended learning resources so that when kids are behind, we have extended resources to help them catch up. And importantly, that every child feels seen, loved, heard, and is culturally connected to the work. We're not just teaching to a test, we're trying to create literate, creative, compassionate citizens who improve our world. And the way the brain learns is they have to feel safe, connected, and culturally recognized in order to feel a part of this journey and to accomplish their academic goals. So those were exciting awards. If we go to the next slide, joining Ray Oglethorpe on our panelists today will be Ralph Smith, who is the Managing Director of the National Campaign for Grade Level Reading. As I said earlier, he has watched this work across the country and within our community for 10 years. So he has a great perspective that he'll share at the end of this meeting. And of course, Dr. Moore, our new superintendent of schools, we're in a very strange position right now where probably the worst of COVID and worst environment that we've had relative to COVID has come upon us at the same time we have the best leadership and the best partnership that we could have ever wanted in the last 10 years. So we're excited about where we're going. We think our response to COVID is controllable, and it's what we all can do together to help Dr. Moore achieve the greatness that he set out for our public school system. So with that, I would love to show a brief 2-minute video, and then we will turn it over to Ray.
We are the Learning Alliance. We believe that literacy is the gateway to all learning. Our Moonshot mission is for 90% of children to be ready for kindergarten and reading on grade level by the end of the 3rd grade. To do that, we are reimagining education. As the managing partner of the Moonshot Literacy Movement, we are building a literacy culture in our schools and our community. When teachers, parents, and community leaders unite to reimagine education, together, we cultivate literate, creative, and compassionate citizens who will improve our world. We are a model for the nation, and together, we transform lives through literacy.
Investing in the Learning Alliance means
our community coming together.
High-quality early learning is a priority.
My family is supported.
Making a change in the education system so that all children will be literate and creative.
working together to achieve the incredible goal of reading proficiency for all children.
Investing in the Learning Alliance means
you get a brighter future full of literate, creative, and compassionate citizens.
I've become a more confident teacher.
All children have the potential to thrive, but our Moonshot Academy ensures that they do.
Our children will become productive citizens.
Fewer children spending time in our jails and prison systems.
The opportunity to improve a child's literacy, and therefore his or her life.
Investing in the Learning Alliance means
investing time,
investing your talent,
investing treasure,
investing in my daughter.
Investing in the Learning Alliance means
I can read now.
Investing in the Learning Alliance means
investing in
Gary, Addie, Raylan, Castiel, Trey, Marley. Investing in me changes who I become.
Changes who I become.
Changes who I become.
Investing in the Learning Alliance means
you change the world.
When you invest in the Learning Alliance, you are changing the lives of kids across our county. We could not do this without you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's with deep gratitude that we thank everybody in this room. We have our investors and we have some community leaders here, from United Way to the police and sheriff's department, to Johns Island Community Service League, Child Care Resources, Healthy Start, the Early Learning Coalition, and I could go on and on. This is a journey that we are all on together to really help our kids and create the conditions necessary for 90% to be achievable. So with that, this couldn't have been done without the passion and dedicated leadership of Ray Oglethorpe, whom you all know. And he's going to share some words about reminding us why this needs to be an essential investment and top priority for all of us, for our communities. And Ray, if you would take it from here, that would be great.
Well, thank you, Barbara, and welcome everybody. And I really want to thank everybody for joining us here today on this Zoom webinar. You know, because we've been apart for so long due to COVID-19, I thought it would be helpful to remind all of us in this room about the 3 key facts that drive the Learning Alliance in our school district. And I know many of you have heard this before, but it's worth repeating, that in K through 3, you learn to read. Thereafter, you read to learn. And the thing is, if you can't learn to read, you can't read to learn. So that's absolutely key. The other key fact is that 65% of our 3rd graders nationwide, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, cannot read at grade level. Only 35% can. That's an amazing statistic, and one that is pretty shameful for a nation as rich as ours to allow so many young people at age 9 to fail so early in their lives. And the final third fact that drives us, if you can't read by the end of the 3rd grade, you only have a 1 in 6 chance of ever catching up. You know, have 65% of our young people unable to read proficiently has long-term and significant consequences, just not for those kids, but also for our communities and for our nation as a whole. Just look at some of these statistics that come out from people not being able to read proficiently. Children who can't read proficiently are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school, to become juvenile delinquents. 85% are poor readers. Those who are on welfare, 75% are poor readers. Unwed mothers, 85% of them are unwed mothers. Those arrested, 65% of people arrested are poor readers. And those who are in prison, 90% of them are poor readers. In fact, prison population planning is based upon 3rd grade reading scores. So there's a direct correlation to reading and all these societal ills that are in front of us. Now, if left unchecked, these dismal statistics are only going to get worse due to the impact of COVID-19 on learning gains for our children. McKinsey & Company just released, the world famous consulting organization, just released some data from their analysis. It says that the 2020-2021 academic year, the one we're currently in, only 20% of the kids nationwide are in a physical location with a teacher in front of them. Only 20%. 80% of the rest of the students across this country are either learning remotely, in a hybrid environment, or not in school at all. And these last 3 environments, hybrids or learning remotely or not even attending classes, are not at all conducive to learning gains. And in fact, they're even worse for kids when they're especially young. So McKinsey & Company projects by the end of this academic year in June 2021 that there will be an average of 5 to 9 months learning loss for kids that will only compound over time. Now, let me just tell you what this means. What it means is that right now we have, just to take one example, right now we know that half of our children entering kindergarten are at least 1 to 2 years behind. Now, due to COVID-19, add nearly another half a year to a full year to those 2 years, 1 or 2 years behind, and you can have as much as 3-year gap that kids in the school system have to work to fill up. And it's a very large gap. And because the odds of currently closing that gap are low, the remaining gap continues to compound over time throughout their academic career. So folks, we are at risk of losing an entire generation of K through 3 students who will be unprepared to succeed in the global economy, participate in higher education, participate in military service, or even civilian service. Right now, we are at a decision point in the education system. How we respond will dictate where we're going to be in 5 years. By then, will we have a lost generation of K through 5 students in COVID wins, Or can we win this battle and beat COVID-19 and save this generation? The Learning Alliance decided to beat COVID-19, and we've taken a big financial risk, and we have expanded our budget by over 20% to scale our programs across all 13 elementary schools and met Dr. Moore's request for help. We believe we have a community and a school district and innovative, passionate, motivated, and skilled people to win this battle against this virus and get our students to read on grade level by the end of the 3rd grade. Thanks to many of you, the results and the situation here in Indian River County couldn't be more different than what's happening in the McKinsey study and what's happening nationwide. You're going to be amazed to see how much different what's happening here is compared to the rest of the nation. So with that, let me turn this over to Dr. Moore, our school superintendent, who is continually driven by the model of best by kids. Every decision he makes is made through that lens of best by kids. To us, Dr. Moore and his team have demonstrated exceptional leadership during this COVID-19 crisis, and we couldn't be more pleased and prouder of the productive partnership with him and his outstanding staff. So David, let me turn it over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Ray. And it is an honor and a privilege to be here just to tell a story, a very impactful story, a story that really talks through one of the most complex times in the history of education. As Ray and Barbara mentioned, I began here a year ago, January. And coming in, I saw the opportunity that I didn't see in a lot of places, didn't see in Miami where I was working. And what I saw was a community that had a high expectation and a belief that through partnership and commitment and collaboration, we can transform the public school system within that community. It wasn't working against, it wasn't pulling apart, it wasn't working in silos. There was a true driven effect from the community to have a school system that changed and transformed the lives of students. It was the Learning Alliance who first attracted me to Indian River. And through exploration and prayer and consideration, sought out Indian River to be a superintendent, and was blessed with the opportunity to be selected to serve as superintendent. And when I looked at Indian River as a whole, I saw nothing but potential in terms of the growth, the opportunities to redesign and consolidate redundant services and really create a organization that's solely focused in on improving the lives of students and ensuring that 90% that we're speaking about by 3rd grade, making sure students enter kindergarten ready, lies as the foundation of a life of achievement for students. And that was the goal. So I began to go to work, and I knew that this isn't work that I can do by myself. And I knew with a partnership with the Learning Alliance, I was already steps ahead, but I wanted to have the best to help our community. Went out and I sought an assistant superintendent, Mr. Richard Meyer, who oversaw just Reed, Florida for the entire state, a early learning expert, and challenged him to take up this charge with me for this community. And he uprooted his family from Tallahassee and now serves as our assistant superintendent. So we're excited to have someone who has a deep understanding of what good instruction looks like at all ages through a child's education. And if you don't have folks to invest in teachers, you're not going to be able to have the transformation or impact that you would want. Also, on the operational side, I went out and I sought someone who is currently a superintendent, knowing that if we're going to have our focus in on teaching and learning, we need to ensure that the operation and the structure of the organization continues to move. So Mr. Scott Bass, who was the superintendent of Glades County, gave him that same charge and the same challenge, and he was willing to come move here and serve as the deputy superintendent, overseeing operations, making sure Mr. Meyer and my attention remains where that attention needs to be on teaching and learning. So as we began to redesign and recreate this district 44 days into my superintendency where students were actually in school. In comes COVID, March 13th. That was the day we all in the state of Florida will remember, because that was the day school systems across the state of Florida were told to close their doors. And we were told to close our doors for an undefined amount of time. And it ended up being the entire school year. So we went from the recreation and redesigning of the school system to recreating systems and educational opportunities for students as a result of the pandemic. We created models for students. We stayed in the quarantine for the remainder of the school year. We finished the school year. And as students returned, first we saw students returning significantly behind where they typically would be in any other year. 5 percentage points on average, students coming back behind where they were. Teachers who are master teachers having to go back and fill in the gaps as a result of the impact of COVID. And that's very, very hard. And we made a decision early on over the summer. We're going to create models so families can access their education. And we created 3 different models, obviously the brick and mortar model, obviously a virtual model, and what we call a transitional model. And those were opportunities for students and families to make decisions based on the pandemic. And as we created those models, we quickly learned people were making decisions not in the best academic interest of their families, but based on their understanding and reality around the pandemic. So we improved those instructional models as best we possibly could, but don't misunderstand it. Nothing is ever going to replace a teacher in a classroom who is being supported to grow and educate children. That opportunity for the adult to see where a child is struggling to differentiate that instruction, to have that guide on the side and help explicitly can't be replaced in a virtual or at-home model. It just can't. So we didn't wait. We began to act immediately. We opened our schools with about 62% of our students in brick and mortar. As students began to struggle, whether academically, participation, we went to homes, we found families, we asked them to come in, look at what we're doing in terms of our health and safety measures in schools to bring families back. We now started our third 9 weeks, and we have 84% of our students back in brick and mortar. At the beginning of the second 9 weeks, going back, we brought back 1,800 students, which is significant, over 10% of our student body back. So we're very happy when you compare the data that Ray was sharing, about 20% across the nation. Here in the school district of Indian River County, we have 84%. And you look at some of our economically disadvantaged Black subgroups, take Black as an example, 54% of our Black population in our community began the school year at home, and now it's up to 80. So we're proud of that number, but still concerned about the gaps that were created over the course of time. And in our classrooms now, we have teachers who always deal with complex realities and different learning needs of all students. But those needs are varied now in a way in which we've never seen. You have students who have been in classroom all year, who are in one place, students who came back at the end of the first 9 weeks, and students who just returned. So the ability to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of all students in a classroom is harder than it's ever been. And we knew this was going to happen. We've partnered with the Learning Alliance. Some of the investment that Ray was speaking of provides instructional coaches in our schools. And these instructional coaches, 100% of their time is in schools providing direct support for teachers. 100% of their time dedicated to growing and coaching world-class educators in our schools. Just not going to a professional development and then returning to your class, but in the classroom, side by side, coaching, disaggregating data, reflecting on the instruction, working together to, over the course of an entire school year, build capacity for teachers. And that may be a one-year investment, but that coach is making an investment in that teacher, and that skill, that tool that has been created through that coaching never goes away. That teacher, we improve the capacity of that teacher. So each and every year that follows, that impact continues to grow for the students with that teacher serves. Those instructional coaches have paid a significant impact in transforming instruction over the course of this school year. Now, the environments where students are coming back because of COVID are complex. We've been able, through this partnership, really to enhance the skills of our teachers to respond to the vast learning needs of students within classrooms. But teaching time alone isn't going to get the job done. We've lost time. We need to make up time. An interventionist, which is another contribution that Learning Alliance is making. These are individuals in our schools. My light just went out, but I'm sure okay. Individuals in our school providing individualized, adult-led, at the appropriate level intervention for students on a daily basis. That is so powerful, that individualized support. That is something that's going to help fill the gap for students and help eliminate the gap for those particular students. Additionally, we went on and we knew we're going to have to provide additional time. The interventions is absolutely needed, but we want more time. We challenged our community through an initiative that we call A2. We introduced it within the first week of school. We want students to acclimate back into the school environment, and we want to accelerate their outcomes. As Ray speaks about that compounded loss, it can't be understated enough. That is significant. If we don't act as fast and as efficiently and clinically as possible to eliminate these deficits for our students, it will continue to compound their loss, and they will be those statistics that Ray was sharing. That's how important this work is. So through A2, we began before school, after school, during lunch interventions. Once again, looking to use data to say these students were impacted the most. We need to begin to provide this additional time for them to fill those gaps. Another significant contribution from the Learning Alliance. And as we now move and we look at the data that we're receiving, the data still is encouraging, but at the same time, lets us know we're not going to be done with COVID in 1 year. And anyone who tells you that we are, it is misleading you. We're making the investments now, but students who have been out of school for 3, 6, or 9 months, depending on their reality, we're going to need to continue to be clinical in closing those gaps, which means spring break academies, working over spring break, enriching innovative remediation-based programs to allow students that extra time to close that back. Summer programming, really identifying students who have been impacted the most, extending the school year in a very enriching and fun way to ensure that we continue to provide that needed support. And that's the planning work that we're doing now. And that's not easy to do because in the state of Florida, like pretty much every state, significantly underfunded. And what's not mentioned, the impact and the acknowledgement that this county has received truly speaks to this partnership. In the state of Florida, we use a district cost differential. And because you have home prices in our community that are significantly high, we send dollars to Tallahassee. We send it for every dollar we send, we only get 60 to 70 cents back because there are other districts where the entire community has a lower cost of home. So those districts, the state is offsetting funds across the entire state to provide them additional funds. And when you look at an entire community that has really, really expensive homes, that kind of pulls the weight or the average up, and it becomes a misrepresentation of a reality of a community. And that is a attempt from the state to equalize funding, but hurting communities that are above in that average. And that's where Indian River is. So partnerships like this are critical. You can't move and transform a district without a singular vision and focus. I think what the Learning Alliance has created was a community awareness around reading and literacy. And it wasn't funded or created through the schools. It was created by the Learning Alliance. And I'm new here, I can say it, and I believe it should be the school system leading the charge. And we're involved in this work, and we're transforming what this community is and the expectation that we collectively have. But this is special. This is very, very, very special. And I can't tell you how excited I am to have this partnership, this expectation placed across or blanketed across the entire community. And in the coming years, we're going to look at the data. We're going to see an impact as a result of COVID. But mark your calendars, continue to look at every summer at the progress that Indian River County is having. We're going to outpace. We're going to outperform other communities based on this partnership and this commitment. So just thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm looking forward to answering any questions you guys may have. Thank you.
Thank you, David, very much. What David didn't tell you is that opening the schools the way they did, understanding that Best by Kids was opening the door, took weekly meetings all summer, led by David, and conviction that it was Best by Kids, bringing in unions, community members, teachers, principals. And midway through, I've told people my resilience is really high, but I was throwing up my hands on how he was going to get this done. And so opening it up with 62% of the kids was completely different than what our partners were doing across the country. We talked to Kansas City, Philadelphia, and many others, Charlotte, Mecklenburg. They were all closed when we were open. So that is his leadership. So David, thank you so much for that. What I now want to do is turn it over to Ralph Smith. Ralph, you have been on this journey. You started the journey about a year after we started, and what started as a goal by two crazy moms and a philanthropist, suddenly you gave it credence. You said third grade matters. So I'd love you to share your thoughts on this journey and what makes our community special.
Good morning, Barbara, and thank you so much. I'm honored to have been invited and delighted to have the opportunity to participate. And when I say opportunity to participate, it's really a bundle of opportunities, because it's an opportunity to be inspired once again by Ray Oglethorpe. It's an opportunity to connect with my former boss, Jim Kelly. It's an opportunity to express admiration, appreciation, and gratitude to you, Barbara, and to your amazing team. And of course, special kudos to the ever ready, ever energetic Maria Bryan. But this is also a new opportunity, an opportunity to hear your superintendent. I had a chance to sit in on a webinar just by accident several months ago. And the energy that we've seen here this morning broke through the screen. And my question is, who is that guy? You have added to a very special effort in Indian River County, a very special superintendent. And Dr. Moore, folks who know me know I tend toward candor and not courtesy. I am completely aligned with your vision and with your sense of what it will take to get our students back on track. And I want to return to that in a couple of minutes. You know, I can report that the Campaign for Grade Level Reading has grown into a network that's almost 400 communities. I think Barbara is correct that it's probably now over 400 communities, but since that number scares me to death, I never say about 350. It's 350 plus communities in 45 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, and now 2 provinces in Canada, Alberta and Saskatchewan. Because of a promise I made too hastily back in 2012, and I know Barbara remembers that promise because she was one of the first people to take me up on it. I have visited with more than 100 of these communities in 23 states. None, I might add, personally since March 12th of last year. You know, this Johnny Appleseed approach has allowed a degree of FaceTime, crowdsourcing, temperature taking that resonates with the sort of inveterate learner of someone who starts life, early professional life as a law professor, and I plead guilty to that. But truth be told, I've learned quite a bit. And if we had time today, I would offer up a list of the success factors we have distilled. I could respond to the question of what's not working with a detailed list of the conditions that operate as brakes on momentum of progress. I could tell you that there is no single program or intervention that is sufficiently powerful to yield the kind of impact that we are searching for, and no school district that is prepared to succeed without the support of the community. With no hesitation whatsoever, I would tell you that the kind of progress we want to see regarding early school success is measured by grade level reading or math, requires closing the gap between what science tells us about teaching and what we do about teaching. It requires ensuring that children from economically challenged families have the wraparound services and supports to overcome the challenges of poverty-related adversity. That it also requires prioritizing and investing in reducing the large number of children who are falling beyond the reach of schools because they arrive at school already too far behind to catch up, because they miss too many days of school during the school year and fall behind as the year progresses, and because far too many experience summer learning loss and return to school having lost ground over the summer and being farther behind in September than when they left in June. And these days, as soon as you say summer learning loss, you've got to be prepared to talk about the learning loss that kids are experiencing today, because you know, and we know, and Dr. Moore has described the challenge, you know, the abrupt closing of schools, early childhood programs to contain COVID-19 undoubtedly saved thousands of lives. But this life-saving measure had an unintended consequence: student learning loss that is unprecedented in proportion and scale, and potentially catastrophic for a generation. And as with the virus itself, the learning loss is most acute with those children with pre-existing conditions. And in this case, the pre-existing condition, children with special educational needs, children whose parents have to work, children living in homes with little or no connectivity to the internet and too few devices to be able to manage what school has to offer. Children who prior to COVID were affected and in some cases afflicted with poverty-related adversity. Left unattended, the learning loss of this magnitude could compromise significantly the prospects for early school success for this generation. Ray, as he usually does, because he is so data-driven, went straight to some of the best data we have, and it comes from a source that might be considered surprising, and that is McKinsey and Company. His data concur with what I read as well. But all children will lose ground. Black and Hispanic children will lose even more ground. And Black and Hispanic children who are also in economic challenged families will lose the most ground of all. Up to 1.1 million students could drop out of high school over the next several years as a result of the COVID-19 learning loss. And these impacts will produce a GDP loss of $173 billion minimum, up to almost $300 billion per year. This is, as the initial McKinsey report said, the hurt that could last a lifetime. So I am enthusiastically supportive of how your superintendent in Indian River County has responded, and urge your continued active support for this effort. Now, I could brighten your day by offering a list of some of the most promising adjustments and adaptations, inventions and innovations. My phone has gone off. I could talk about some of the adaptation innovations of communities across the nation as they've responded to this challenge. But I'll tell you that I have rarely heard a response as far-reaching, as thoughtful as Dr. Moore outlined. And as I listened to him, I managed to find the answer to a question that is always put to me, and that was put to me by your team just a week ago. Because folks have noticed that whenever I'm asked about the 3, 4, or 5 best communities, which ones get it right, they notice that Indian River County is always on the list. And so they try in different ways to ask why. And last week, Barbara, I'm not sure whether it was you or Ray, you said, what makes us so special? What is the secret sauce? And actually the answer is embedded in the question, because it is a sauce. There is no one thing. It's a combination of ingredients that must be attended, must be tasted, adjusted, and stirred. Because it is a sauce, the magic is in the mix. And what I will tell you, that sauce has as its ingredients the bold and evocative moonshot aspiration, the visible, passionate civic leadership, the discipline to follow the research, to drive with data, the humility and grace to accept fallibility without drowning in the blame blame game, the courage to avoid resort, that pithy admonition that says, oh, we have to learn to do more with less. You have realized that sometimes to do more and get more, you have to invest more. And across the decade, the courage to stay the course, and in your words, Barbara, to seek breakthroughs where others may settle for breakdowns. This is the accords with the underlying reality of the work around literacy. When we succeed in having a child move from learning to read to reading to learn, that child becomes an agent of their own learning. They becomes an architect of their own development, becomes an author of their own story. What you have done in Indian River County, you have undertaken to transform and to make an ally of an entire community, imbuing it with a sense of agency fueled by that powerful moonshot aspiration. You've drawn upon an enabling can-do narrative that it is possible to write a different future. And you've made this community believe that it can write its own story of success. That is the work you do. And along with my colleagues and investors in the Campaign for Grade Level Reading, I am so honored to be associated with the Learning Alliance and this Moonshot movement. This is incredible work, and I thank you for the leadership, the vision, and to sticking to it.
Thank you so much, Ralph. We appreciate all of our panelists for coming. We thank all of our investors and community members who came today. And we have a couple minutes left and a few questions that have popped up. If anybody else has any questions that they would like answered and we have time, there's a Q&A button again at the bottom. If you just type your question in there, we will try to get to as many as possible. So our first question is to Dr. Moore, and it's from Fritz Spitzmiller. And he's asking, could the school district provide this level of support without the additional funding by the Learning Alliance?
Thank you for the question, Fritz. And the very direct answer is no. It's absolutely not. And we were very bold with our ask. And when Ray says that they generously stood up, I think because we're like-minded and they see the importance of this work in capturing students where we have them, Learning Alliance scrambled to make this happen. And I completely understand the expectation that's been placed on me to take that investment and transform it into an impact and improvement of the quality of lives for children. So it can't be done without this partnership.
All right, thank you. And our next question is from Beth Wehrweiss. This is to Ray or Barbara. What is the amount of money needed by the Learning Alliance to provide these coaches, interventionists, and after-school summer programs that are necessary to reverse the learning loss caused by COVID?
Ray, do you want me to take that? Yeah, so we worked hard with Dr. Moore to create a budget, which we're in the middle of fundraising for, which is $3.3 million a year for the next 3 years. The Learning Alliance has always believed that if we're going to be behind the school district, we can't come in for a year. We need to come in for 3 years so that they can actually create transformational change. So that budget of 3.3 million allowed for the coaching and the scaling of the interventionists. It doesn't fully allow for the scaling of extended learning resources that Dr. Moore talked about are so needed this summer and over the next couple of years. So we will be working with him to better understand, once the data is processed, how to expand our Moonshot Academy, which, Johns Island Community Service League, many members here have funded it. So has the Children's Services Advisory Council. But that after school and summer program has been highly impactful. It is on, 5 campuses. There are 13 campuses it could expand to. So our 3.3 million, number could go up. We could see it between that and any interventionists that are needed to catch kids up, going towards the $5 million mark. But we will wait to share that number once Dr. Moore gets through, with his analysis, and once we raise the money to do what we've already promised to do. Ray, do you have anything to add? You're on mute.
Ray?
You're on mute.
Yes, I've lost my screen here, unfortunately. No, I don't have much to more to add. Let me just say that back in May we took a big gulp when we did this, and Dr. Moore came to us asking, could we fund 13 positions in K through 2 literacy coaches and 4 additional interventionists, and we stepped up and are currently funding 17 positions in the school district to turn this situation around in the school system. So it's been a big lift. Hopefully we can continue to meet his needs and catch these kids up with extended after school programs, et cetera. And like Barbara said, we're working closely with them to try to figure how fast we can ramp these things, because it's just not getting the money in the door. Do we have the resources to actually pull it off? And so we're trying to do that analysis, and believe me, we will be back with you regarding it.
All right, and I think we'll have time for one more question. We'll be able to get everyone off on time as promised. This is from Terry Burns. She said, what are you doing to share this inspiring vision with those who are not already on TLA's special friend list?
Barbara?
And that can go to anybody in the room.
Yeah, well, I'll start. So, we are becoming clearer and clearer. Ralph, you had a great quote that I frequently, borrow, and you probably had it about 8 years ago, which is literacy is not a spectator sport. We need to get everybody off the bleachers and onto the playing field. So, in our planning, we are trying to broaden the number of people who hear this message, and you all, everybody in this room is just in your conversations with your friends to start talking about early literacy being a top priority and essential investment for our community. If we all hold that goal and more of us share it with our friends, it will create, more conditions for our public officials to hear it, because public funding comes into this, as well as people who might be able to donate and expand, the list to help, us meet our budget needs and what we're trying to do to support Dr. Moore and the 0 to 5 work. So there is active effort. Megan, is on here. Megan that's her top priority, is to try to better spread the message. And it's the top priority of all of our board members. But we really need everybody out there to help us do that.
Let me also maybe ask a question of Dr. Moore, because this comes up in my conversations with my friends about the teachers and the unions, and how has that all gone? Because when I walk in and see what these teachers are doing, teaching in class, teaching virtually, teaching in hybrid, it's just an amazing deal. And what pushback are we getting from the unions, et cetera, regarding all this? And maybe you could answer that, David.
So great question. And I think it just reinforces the partnership. And in coming into the district, teachers were not under contract. We had to negotiate in previous year's contract. We are just now in the process of ratifying a 3-year deal with our teachers, which is monumental for any system to have a 3-year deal. Really gives us a clear direction in supporting educators in our system. And we are transforming in changing and challenging teachers to explore the reality in classrooms. And that's not easy. And so many times, so many school systems fail because as you transform, you don't invest and grow your teachers, you just demand change. So taking the time to create that partnership with our teachers, they're seeing the support being provided. And when they see support being provided from the district that's being provided as a result of this partnership, we're growing their willingness and understanding on how to grow and be champions of change in the lives of children. So it's just a great partnership, and that our contract with the teachers is further evidence of that.
All right, we have a couple more questions that popped up and we're still a little ahead of schedule. So the first one is from Cynthia Lamoth, and it's, what support do you get from the community and the school committees? And I think that would be maybe Dr. Moore of answering what support you've seen, if I'm reading the question correctly.
So in terms of support, and let me answer it like this: just a community-wide awareness around a priority of ensuring our students move to 90%. I think the community fully understands that. Now, organizing ourselves in a way to make that a reality and then leverage the impact of that 90% through 4th through 12th grade is our next steps. So bringing that to a reality, bringing the action, the alignment, the expectation, the accountability and support to make that happen is the district's next step. You know, this community is significantly further along because it's been the mantra of the community, created and founded through the Learning Alliance for the last decade. And we've made progress over the last 10 years. And I think based on our first 10 years, we're going to be able to significantly accelerate our success in the coming years.
All right, thank you. And the last question we have is, how are you engaging those families in poor communities whose children have not yet returned to a traditional school setting? And that's from Nathan Peterson.
It's a great question. And we have been going and knocking on doors. If a student is not finding success, we have social workers assigned to our schools, school counselors. If they're not logging on, it's up to us to connect and engage with the parents to figure out what we can do that's different. The rate of getting students to come back into our schools, that 62 to 84, is significant, but it's still not all of the students that we want. The 16% that's still not in school, there's a high percent of those students that really need to be in school. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And some of the fears that families face are real. And some of the environments within their home associated with health are real. So it's continuing to problem solve, never giving up, having the endurance and the perseverance to work with families to be the best that we can possibly be when we can't get them in brick and mortar. And then as we return or exit out of COVID, that's a really wonderful statement, to be prepared and have those students identified and give them those additional resources as soon as we get them back. Have a plan ready to go.
All right, well, thank you all. We appreciate everyone's time. I'm going to turn it over to Ray to close it out, and have a great day.
Well, thank you, Megan, and just thank all of you for attending. We really appreciate you going through this. We're right at 9:30, just as we always say we will. We're going to close this thing out. But from the bottom of my heart, and I know from all of us in the community and the Learning Alliance, we couldn't do this without your support. I mean, when Dr. Moore came to us asking to fund 17 positions, we gulped, but we knew that we had a community that cared, and we took the chance and did it, and we committed to do that. Hopefully, he's asking us again, I'm sure, and hopefully we can continue to do this for the next few years and make sure this is the best community we possibly can. Best by kids is what drives us all. And this goal of the 90% by the 3rd grade is absolutely key. We can't allow this generation to fail. And I know we won't here in Indian River County. And I know we get to ask about how do we take this elsewhere, but I've always said we've got to stay focused. If we can't do it here in Indian River County, we can't do it anywhere. And so the point is that we are helping other communities to start up their own moonshots and their own programs, but we've got to make it happen here because this is key. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being on this broadcast. It's incredibly encouraging to all of us that you still care. So thanks. Goodbye.